So welcome, Sally, officially. So we were just talking about where Jesus leads us in the course, in the last lesson, which is actually repeated 5 times. So I'll just bring this up. I'll share my screen. I'm talking about the ultimate goal. Okay, so there we go. Workbook lesson 365. Share my screen. Okay. So maybe have a read of this, because it's always useful to look at the end. We've still got about 120 lessons to go before we get there. But this is where he leaves us in the last 5 lessons of the workbook. So this is the end goal of the course. The ultimate goal is enlightenment and transcending time and space. But he's saying, well, that will happen of its own accord. God takes the final step. His goal is to train you to listen to the Holy Spirit all the time, 24/7. That you're in its charge and you're being guided by this presence within you, which is quite well expressed in this lesson.
Okay. This holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace. And if I need a word to help me, he will give it to me. If I need a thought, that he will also give. And if I need but stillness and a tranquil open mind, these are the gifts I receive of him. He is in charge of my request, and he will hear and answer me, because he speaks for God, my Father, and his Holy Son.
Any thoughts on that?
So just listening within is our goal. Well, not even goal. I mean, we have it now. But
that's where he's leaving us. He's saying there's no more need of any lessons. If you go to the epilogue, this course is a beginning, not an end. Your friend goes with you. Your friend goes with you. You're not alone. No one who calls on him can call in vain. Whatever troubles you, be certain that he has the answer and will gladly give it to you if you simply turn to him and ask it of him. So he's leaving us in the charge of the Holy Spirit. That's the outcome of the course, is that you are now guided. You have the right voice guiding you in every situation in your life. So that your decisions are correct. Right-minded decisions lead to right-minded actions. You experience a state of flow, which is miracles. And ultimately, that process takes you, corrects your mind, heals your mind completely, and will, when you're finally ready to let the body go, will mean that your mind is completely healed, and there's no need to come back into this world as a person. But that's beyond the scope of the curriculum. The curriculum is to teach you to listen to this guidance of the Holy Spirit moment by moment in your life. That's where he ends, but that's where he leaves us.
I used to call the Holy Spirit, before I came across this work, higher self. And I used to see my higher self above me, like I'm here and my higher self is up there somewhere. But the way the course speaks to me is that the Holy Spirit is within me, and it's listening to myself, my true self in me.
Sometimes a better, there's 2 ways of framing it. They both involve time and space, so none of them are ultimately true, but the analogy is either a higher self, something higher than you, or deeper, depth or height. Both are used. I prefer depth, I think, because it sort of implies you going within, deeper within you, rather than higher somewhere away. The higher has been used to denote some kind of off-planet God, for generations, for millennia, that God is on high, in the heavens, on somewhere out there, but not within me. So that going deeper within you sort of gives you that, yes, it's actually in my own mind. Ultimately, use whatever works. A higher state of consciousness is still clearly in your mind, but these subtleties can actually have quite a big impact. Because like higher self, just the language meant, oh, now I'm thinking of it somewhere above me. Okay, well, there's a separation there. Above me. Okay, well, there's now still a split. There's me, separate self, and then some other higher self, which is a bit inaccessible because it's kind of floating somewhere above me, which isn't true. This is all just concepts that the ego invents to try and separate us from this awareness. Truth is, it's absolutely your awareness, right here, right now. It's your true awareness. If you don't have it, then it's more useful to say, I'm going within. I'm going deeper within. I'm going to find that awareness within my own mind. It's not out there. It's not above me. It's within me. So the depth analogy, I think, certainly works better for me.
Yeah, and that ties
using
in.
height.
It ties in with my insight this morning that I'm not going home. Home isn't out there somewhere over there, that I'm home now, here, in me.
Yeah, home is the problem with using all these analogies is they have sort of so-called real world, physical world ties. So then that can distort our thinking because we go, I'm going home. Okay, well, I've been on a journey and now I've got to physically return somewhere that's not, I'm not there yet, but I've got a journey. But actually you're already there. The truth is you're already home. You're already in that state. It's a state of mind. It's not a physical destination. That actually is your true state. So you're already there in truth. You've always been there in eternity. It's just been covered over by all of the false illusions of the ego. So the job then is not to really to take a journey. It's just to uncover, to let go of and uncover the truth that's already there. That's actually what the hero's journey involves. So it's a journey of penetrating through the layers down to the the very core of who you are, which is the true self, or the Christ. Just bringing this up. So if we look at this instrument for peace, could be useful in this context. So you've got the levels: perception, emotion, thought, belief, and then at the very core, the desire or prayer of the heart. So when we say go deeper, it means go beyond the surface level of perception, just what your senses are perceiving. Flatland, Ken Wilber calls it. Just, okay, reality is just what I perceive with my physical senses. Go beyond that and start looking at emotion and looking at thought. Now you're going deeper into your mind, aren't you? And then what are my core beliefs? These are beliefs that define me. At the very core of my so-called egoic existence, so-called separate self, is a belief that I am a separate self, and then that plays out slightly differently for everyone. But the core belief is I have my own self. I'm a separate self. So we have to go deeper through the blocks, the obstacles to awareness of love's presence, as Yeshua calls them in the introduction, exist in these layers. And as we go deeper into our minds, we penetrate through them. It's like cutting through them, or like an onion, that onion skin analogy. You're cutting away each layer to reveal the next one and the next one. And quite appropriate, because often that involves some pain and suffering. And so tears come, because like, oh, this is quite difficult and traumatic. So that eventually you get to the very core, which is your desire. It's the desire or prayer of my heart. What do I really want? Do I want to be a separate self? Do I want to be human? Or do I want to be one self, the Christ, united with all my brothers and sisters and all living things? And so the miracle takes you down to that core level. Okay, what's my decision in this particular situation? Let me cut through all of the clouds of complexity that are obscuring the very simple truth that it's a desire. I desire to be separate or desire to be one, but I cannot desire to be both because they contradict each other. So you want deeper into yourself. You've uncovered all these layers, you've penetrated through them, and then you get to the very core, which is now a decision in your mind. You change your mind about what you want. Okay, I want to be one self rather than a separate self. Therefore, a belief in a separate self concept, I feel like I'm a victim, for instance, that I've been hardly done by, I'm unfairly treated. That belief does not correspond with the desire to be one self. So you have to let that belief go. So your desire then changes your belief, that changes your thoughts. Okay, I'm no longer a victim of the world. In fact, I'm responsible for my experiences in the world. I've been projecting all this stuff out and perceiving it as real. So I'm recognizing that it's my own thoughts that are doing this and my own emotions that are tormenting me. No one's really doing it to me because it's my emotional response to everyone and everything that's the problem. And now, having had those realizations, I've actually changed my beliefs, my thoughts, my emotions, and my perception has changed because my perception is constructed of the desire at the very core of it. What do I want to perceive here? The belief that underpins it, the thoughts and the emotion that make up those beliefs. And emotions kind of entrench those beliefs and really get us to identify with them. And then all of that creates a perception, which then is at the top layer of the tree, of the circle, of the onion. Let's use the onion analogy. So the depth analogy works quite nicely here because you've got these layers and you've got to penetrate through the layers to the core. And when you get to that core and you really see clearly, yes, I have been desiring to be a separate self, but now I can change my mind and I can desire to be one self. That's the level of the miracle. Then you've changed your mind fundamentally about who you think you are and who you want to be. And that's what every miracle is doing. I guess you could flip that around and make it a height diagram. Start at there could be a pyramid instead of this. If you went height, you'd have the base pyramid, should be perception, and then you could go up to emotion, and then thought, and then belief, and then at the very top of the pyramid, desire. Flip it around. But this was given, by the way, this diagram was given by Yeshua to David Hoffmeister. And he told him, okay, this is a visual representation of how this process works. And he used, the circle onion idea rather than the pyramid idea. Because pyramid sort of implies hierarchy and levels. And there are levels in this as well. But yeah, he's used this for a reason. So I think the depth analogy is probably the preferred one from Yeshua's perspective, given that he gave this diagram. But use whatever works. If you find going higher works, okay, if it works for you and it brings you an experience, then no problem. There's nothing to say that it's wrong. It's just what experience it's gonna give to you.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I remember I used this instrument of peace a lot, but I'd not thought about it going down the levels. Yeah, I suppose I kind of think of thoughts and beliefs and emotions all on the same sort of area. But yeah, and the way you just described it going in deeper, yeah, it's very helpful.
Well, if you think about an emotion, what underpins an emotion is a thought, generally. And what underpins thought is belief. And so, they're saying, well, you need to uncover all of this. You need to become aware of it, so that you can see the genesis of your perception. Otherwise, how do you change your perception if you don't do this? Impossible. I'm feeling angry and resentful. Perception. Well, why? Okay, well, I have to go and I have to acknowledge the anger and the resentment. That's first step. So I acknowledge that. That's another level deep. And then you go, well, what thoughts am I thinking? Well, I'm thinking thoughts that I'm being unfairly treated. This is unfair. This always happens to me. Why is this person doing this to me? How dare they? They're really ungrateful, but and so on and so on. Thought, which underpins the emotion. You see how the emotion is, very much related to those thoughts. And then belief. Okay, well, what do I actually believe about myself to be thinking this? Well, I must believe that I'm a victim, identifying with the victim, and I'm seeing the situation through the victim's lens. Oh, I'm unfairly treated, and it's someone else's fault. So then you start to see, well, it's actually my own belief that's the problem. It's not someone else and what they seemingly done. It's how I'm processing and how I'm perceiving that through this belief system of being a victim. That's the problem. And the moment you do that, you turn it around. Okay, well, I don't want that anymore. I can clearly see how this works, the mechanics of it. Once you understand the mechanics, you understand it's dysfunctional, you can change it quite easily. Okay, well, none of this is true. Actually, the only desire I have is to be oneself. So now that changes my belief. Well, I can't be a victim. If I'm oneself, I am that I am. I'm love. I'm all of it. There's no room for the victim concept in that. So I'm powerful. I am healed. I'm whole. I'm loving. I'm kind. And none of the thoughts that contradict that can then be true. So now I've changed my belief in my thought. And already it's like one thing, it's just different movements of the one desire. And so this is why it's quite simple then. It's, do you want separation or do you want unity? Those are the fundamental choices. Because what you choose will bring you more of that experience. You choose separation, well then you experience more separation. And the world confirms that separation is true to you. Okay, so does that diagram sort of make sense in this context?
Yeah, it does. A slightly different question. The desire or prayer bit in the middle. So when I fill in E, whereas what I wanted and expected, so usually it would be something like I want someone to be healthy and happy. But are you saying that really E is more like I am peace or I am love or I'm home? Or when you fill it in generally for people, what do you normally put in E?
Well, E is to highlight the ego's desire.
All right, is ego, yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is all about revealing the ego's desire.
And then if you wanted to change that and you wanted to go backwards through the layers and you changed the desire to be at one, then you'd rewrite. Could you then rewrite your beliefs and your thoughts just for clarity to see that if you were thinking differently, you'd end up with a different result?
Yeah, you could do this for the ego and then change it all around, work through this worksheet. So you're seeing the ego, you're letting it go, and then you could rewrite it. Say, okay, so now having done this process, when I think about
I feel love.
Then I feel, okay, so what am I feeling now? I felt angry and resentful. Now I feel compassionate, understanding. Now I feel love. And so you see how it shifted. And so that would be, they don't actually formally ask you to do that, but that would be like the conclusion of the exercise.
It always feels like there's another step. So I use the energy alignment method that I use to do the final step, which is to me to say this positive affirmation of what it is I now align to. It feels like it's, you can get rid of the stuff that doesn't serve you, but then it's good to focus on the stuff that does, isn't it?
Yeah. So, because it's replacing the one with the other. So you've gone through this process, you cut away all the layers, you replace the desire to be separate with the desire to be one, and then beliefs, thoughts, emotions, perceptions all ripple up from the core, and then you can just state that. It's okay, well, actually, when I believed I was a victim of an unfair world, and I'm being unfair to my mind here, and that I've created this for myself, but I don't have to continue doing so. I can let it go, and I can allow the true awareness in my mind to arise and to change my thoughts. So I'm now thinking, instead of thinking I'm the victim and being unhappy and resentful, I'm thinking, well, this is good. I can change my mind. I can let this go, and I can be free, irrespective of what the other person is choosing to do. Okay, that's an empowered state. I'm feeling quite inspired, quite peaceful, which then influences emotions. Okay, what are the emotions? I'm feeling peaceful. I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling enthusiastic. I might even be feeling joy. And then my perception, because perception is constituted of thoughts and emotion, must have changed. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, just interesting. It's useful to reference to these things in context. And I suppose what we're doing is putting the dots together, connecting the dots. So all these different, and you pull them and you, okay, it's actually one pretty simple holistic thought system here. All these are just tools that point you to the same truth. So use them all and to help you to realize that, well, there's really only one truth and one thought system that points to the truth, which is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, it seems to me in a lot of therapies, there's a lot of focus on clearing the shadow work, moving the ego thoughts, getting rid of the resistance. And only in my experience, obviously, but there seems to be less focus on the positive side of it, where you're focusing on the truth of who you are. And it always seems to me that you do 90% of the stuff that's wrong with them, and then just as an afterthought say, oh yeah, I am free, I am love, I am whatever. And it's like, well, shouldn't we kind of shift that a little bit and be more focused on our true self to kind of embed it in us and get to feel it and know it better?
Yeah, I think that absolutely. So you go through this process the one way. You kind of you've had a change of mind. You've let go. You now desire to be just the one that say, okay, well, what do I now believe? I am love. I am peace in the situation. That's that's replacing my belief that I'm a victim. So you make that conscious, and then the thoughts and the emotions and the perceptions ripple up from that belief. And I think a lot of psychotherapists are scared of that. They're not trained in it. They're trained in looking at the dysfunction, helping people to analyze that and try and work through that. But they're not trained in, well, who are you really? And so often they don't know who they are. Well, what do you actually replace this with? Because it's scary for everyone. It's unhealed healers. Or, I'm not sure I want to go there because I'm no longer a psychotherapist there. I'm just, the one awareness. We're all just the same awareness.
Yeah, I've had that a few times where I didn't want to let go of the resistance because then my time here would end and I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go yet. So it's quite funny really, isn't it? You're striving for this goal, and then when you get an opportunity to get closer to the goal, then you're scared of the goal. And then you're stuck, vacillating between the two.
Yeah, that's just that's a product of an insane split mind. But we can clarify it through this process of forgiveness or letting go and the miracles that happen. Saying this is going to clear your mind, get all of this in alignment. And every time you do it, you entrench the desire to be one self rather than a separate self. That becomes more and more the foundation of all of your thoughts. And then that ripples up into belief, thought, emotion, and perception. So that your whole mind has changed, your perceptions change, everything's changed. It's profound. You look at So I don't know if they teach this in to psychologists and psychotherapists. I don't know if they have a teacher model like this. I think it's sort of fairly obvious, but the obvious is obscure to a lot of people.
Mm.
And Yeshua even says at some point, well, in psychotherapy, nothing really happens. The therapist isn't really doing anything. All a good therapist can do is facilitate the healing. They can be there to help this letting go process happen, to help the person work through these layers, to actually let go and to have a fundamental change of mind. And that's good psychotherapy, fundamental change of mind, not something temporary.
Mm.
Okay, so shall we have a look at today's quote? Today's quote about God's mercy from a Pope, Pope Francis. You can read that.
It is not easy to entrust oneself to God's mercy because it is an abyss beyond our comprehension. But we must. You may say to yourself, oh, I'm a great sinner. All the better. Go to Jesus. He likes you. He likes you to tell him these things. He forgets. He has a very special capacity for forgetting. He forgets, he kisses you, he embraces you, and he simply says to you, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. It's funny, isn't it? Neither do I condemn you. You think you just say, I do not condemn you. Anyway, that's why we're changing the yeah.
When the original, then can look at this. This was a quote from the parable of the old adulteress story, Bible. So it's taken in context. So from this situation, it's basically the Pharisees, the scribes, Pharisees brought this woman who'd been caught in the act of adultery. I mean, the mind boggles, really. So they're like spying. How do you do that? But anyway, apparently they did. So then they bring her to in front of the crowd, and they're trying to trap him to saying something they could use against him. And he just wrote something. They kept demanding. So interesting. You see how he paused? He stooped down and he wrote in the dust with his finger. So what was he writing? Or was he just going, okay, this will give me time. I'm going to pause, just go down, reflect, use the time to, get some guidance. And then he steps up and says, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. So perfect one-liner to just defuse the whole situation. And then it's in context. Jesus stood up against the woman. Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. Jesus said, neither do I. Okay, so it's in the context of where are your accusers?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Even one of them condemn you. Yeah. So it's taken in that context.
Yeah.
Neither do I. Go and sin no more. So lovely, basically saying there is no sin. No one's condemning you except yourself. Lovely demonstration of this, principle of innocence, no matter what. And then saying, well, go and and mend your ways. Don't do it again. Fair enough. Don't keep doing the same dysfunctional thing. But there is no sin. You're off the hook. So that's what Pope's referring to.
Okay.
That particular story of the adulteress.
Mm.
Okay, so you want to read that paragraph?
Today's quote by Pope Francis, he points us to what's been called the abyss of infinite, eternal, divine love in many spiritual traditions. And if you recall from the diagram I shared yesterday, it's an essential part of this journey, without which the necessary undoing of the hero's ego and transformation into their higher self isn't possible, won't happen. And there's the diagram.
So he's actually used in here, interesting that he used the abyss. There's
Mm.
an abyss beyond our comprehension.
Mm.
The peace of God beyond understanding, surpasses understanding. It's called by Paul in the Bible. The ground of being. It's something that is, you can't grasp it intellectually. How can you grasp infinity and eternity with the conceptual mind? You can't. So you can't really grasp it. How can you grasp what's infinite? You can't. But you can let go and surrender and just allow that experience to come. So it arises. And so I says, God takes the final step. It arises when you've let go of all of the beliefs that are bringing the challenges and temptations into your life. So you journey down this, and there's always going to be challenges and temptations, but there's always help and guidance. And eventually that leads you into this abyss where the ego is undone. The ego being the separate self-concept and the belief in separation dies, and you are reborn in the spirit, meaning you just have a clear awareness again of this pure formless awareness of perfect love that you really are. So you are aware of that awareness, you are in that awareness, and you realize there's no separation between you and that awareness. That awareness is your awareness. And this is the abyss that he talks about. Abyss beyond our comprehension. God's mercy, phrased differently, would be pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's that ineffable presence that's always there that we can't really frame and define. And he says an abyss beyond our comprehension. And then the ego has its own version of the abyss. The ego's telling us this is death. Don't go there. Whatever you do, stay in the known world, because this is going to take you to death and you will cease to exist. Although that's a total lie. Only the belief in separation and its effects will cease to exist. Which is what you're here to do. Only function in this world is to undo the ego and allow yourself to be reborn in the spirit. And that's the transformation. You've transformed from identifying with the one self, the separate self, to another, which is the Christ, or the true self. And you recognize that you must be at one. That one-ment has happened. Okay, you want to carry on?
What's just coming to me is about how Jesus saw people whole and complete and healed. I just had a little insight that my terminology of perceiving through, I'm seeing it as though I'm perceiving it through my eyes, that people are whole and complete and well. When I just had an inner shift about that, and I realize it's like just how we project our negative stuff. Well, it doesn't call it negative, but you know what I mean. When we project our negative stuff on people and we see our unresolved and our resistance in other people, we can also project our happiness onto other people and project our health onto them. So I've just had a little inner shift, like it's somehow I was seeing it as a looking at people. And it's more now like, no, because we're all one, so I'm seeing myself in them. So if I'm happy, what I'm thinking is it's just because I'm feeling happy and peaceful at the moment. So it's like projecting, and not even projecting it, is it? It's like seeing that truth everywhere.
Well, he calls that perception, and he calls it extension.
Mm.
You know, you extend out this perception. What's in your mind, you're feeling happy and peaceful, that extends to others. So you see or perceive them. You're not really seeing them with the body's eyes.
No.
This is why we change the language and call it perceive. We perceive them differently from this expanded state of mind.
Mm.
And that's how the real world is revealed to us. Corrected world. All the false beliefs in separation are undone, and experience only love in this moment.
Mm.
And that's what the hero's journey is taking you to. The abyss, the ego is terrified of it, but the abyss will take you in to this pure formless awareness of perfect love that's infinite and eternal. And far from death, you'll find eternal life there. Find an eternal awareness that's unchanging. And that's beautiful.
Mm.
That you then choose. So yes, this is what I choose. This is what I want.
All these little shifts are quite subtle, aren't they? But when they happen, they feel really good, don't they?
Mm.
So if I'm perceiving somebody's not happy, then I'm just projecting some part of me that's not happy onto them. And it's just like resonating with that they already are happiness, I'm already happiness, and that I can choose to see that truth in them, in me.
Mm.
I know what I mean. That probably doesn't make sense to anyone else, but I'm just feeling it, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Okay. Well, it's experiential.
Mm.
So in the end, words, you can try and explain it, but it's a feeling. Can you just stay in that feeling? If it feels good, if it feels happy, again, that's a word to describe the state of mind. But if it feels that way, then great. What's there to change? You're in alignment with source, and source is making you coming through and making you happy in all these situations. And don't even have to put words to it anymore. It just is. I am. That's why I love the name of God that was given to Moses. And he said, well, who should I say sent me? I am that I am. Because there's nothing really to that, is there? There's no kind of object that you can focus on, the mind can focus on. I am that I am is just pure subjective experience. Okay, so we discussed this yesterday. It was worth just bringing this point up again. By the way, before I go on, just a point of, I've included the emojis in the emails for the last day, a couple of days. It's the second day. Do you prefer it without or with emojis?
I love them.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just thought, I've previously written the email, and then I go and then I do the text message. So then I put them in later, but I've just swapped it around. So like I just copy and paste out of one into the other, into here. And I was like, well, should I take them out or should I include them? But I think the whole point is to try and make it more visceral, so you feel more. And so if you've got a visual as well as a word, emojis can help to actually connect with the feeling. So
yeah, and it does, yeah.
I'll include them there. Okay, so we'll read the next paragraph.
As we discussed in yesterday's live session, when you're in the abyss of the ego and your belief in separation is making you feel completely hopeless, totally lost, and desperately afraid, you are actually on the verge of breaking through this dark veil of illusion into the light of loving awareness or mercy, as Pope Francis calls it. This abyss is the end of the ego, which means you no longer believe in separation or the separate self-concept it entails. So you've been reborn as the Christ or higher self, which is the transformation and at-one-ment mentioned in the diagram.
Okay, stop it there. So we mentioned, when you're feeling this really desperate and alone and afraid, it means that it's a day of reckoning for the ego. It's the dark night of the soul, the abyss, transformation, whatever you want to call it. But there's actually progress. This is you're now facing this. You're going through this, which is necessary in order to do the hero's journey. If there's no abyss, no death and rebirth, then you haven't completed the journey, because you're still in identified with the same separate self. So it's absolutely essential. So why wouldn't you welcome it, even though these emotions can feel awful? Okay, well, if I understand the context, I understand what's arising here. It's just my ego, or belief in separation, arising very strongly as a defense mechanism because it doesn't want to be undone. And now I have the opportunity to look at all of that and let it go anyway and collapse it because it's revealed itself. And now I'm transformed. Once I've done that and I've let go of my belief in these thoughts and emotions, and I got through that. In my experience, this can take months, years to get through. It doesn't just happen overnight necessarily. I mean, it could do, I suppose. Interesting, just thinking aloud now. So Eckhart Tolle had a kind of experience that felt to him like an abyss. So I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he had a kind of epiphany. He was so desperately unhappy in his ego one night, and just saying, I can't stand myself, can't live with myself, I can't stand myself anymore. And then clearly saw that there were two selves. There was an I and there was another self. And he said, I can't really explain it. It was like that realization sort of showed him that there were two selves and only one of them was true. And he just kind of got that experientially. And he said it felt like he was going into a vortex. He was kind of being sucked into like some kind of abyss. And he just like disappeared into that. He passed out. The energy was so intense, and then woke up the next morning and the ego dropped away. He's just, looking with clear perception on everything, going, it's actually really beautiful. And just this, underlying peace shining through in his mind. And so he went through that experience overnight, went through the abyss. There was a death of the ego, there was a rebirth the next morning, and then he was transformed. Subsequently to that, he had to kind of figure out what happened to him. He didn't know what had happened to him, so that's when he started spiritual seeking and looking for the answers, and went into many different paths to get the answers. So then led him into ultimately reintegrating into society and becoming a spiritual teacher. But all of that took many, many years. So although he had an overnight abyss experience, the rest of it took many years and was an ongoing journey. Just how it goes. I think there's a misconception. So okay, well, I just get it, instantly, and then that's it. I'm done. And that very, very, very seldom happens. The only case that I can bring to mind is a guy called Ramana Maharshi, I might have mentioned, who at the age of 16 had an intense fear experience related to death, and his father had died a couple of years earlier. So he had this intense fear of death arising, and then he just let it go. He went in and he did inquiry, and he said, well, who's suffering? And he realized that the sufferer who was fearing was illusory, that there wasn't really no self to suffer. And that just took him into this experience of deep peace. And he decided to stay there. So, yeah, but then he just stayed there for the rest of his life. He didn't need to do any more transformation work, so that's unusual. He went through this, and then he was at one, and he spent the rest of his life just meditating. But that was almost certainly not his first lifetime. You can almost guarantee that he was probably a guru or yogi or mystic or something in a previous life, and he'd come back in a very sort of enlightened state of mind. And then at 16, that intense fear experience brought up the remaining shadow ego, and he let it go. And that was his last remaining block or fetter, as the Buddhists call it, to his enlightenment. And then he'd attained it, but it might have taken him many lifetimes to get to that stage where he's ready, in that one experience, to let it all go. So you can't judge it just based on one lifetime. This is the message. Okay.
For many Christians, this is too frightening, and Jesus becomes a more personal, accessible, and comfortable symbol of the unconditional love of God, and to their egos is the abyss of total annihilation. Other religions offer people the same comfort in different form, e.g. the Hindu gods personify and symbolize aspects of divine love. But to worship these symbols as though they are the pure formless awareness of perfect or divine love, they symbolize as a mistake, because as long as you give worth or value to symbols in form, the belief in separation still has a hold in your mind, and this will keep you from experiencing the truth of your being as pure formless awareness of perfect love. Yeah, that's cool.
Thoughts about that?
Well, that just makes total sense now. It's not something I've ever thought about, but yeah, any symbol is.
This is why in religions, we have the devolvement. Instead of just God, one single presence, it devolves, and you have other characters. In Hinduism, they've got multiple gods, which are really aspects of the divine that for people sort of symbolize that and make it easier for them to kind of connect with, because these have a form. Often they were humans like Jesus, and then they become demigods because they express the divine, but it's still a symbol. Ultimately, we're going beyond all symbols, and that's why I like the Course, because it's a pure non-dual approach. There are no symbols are required ultimately. Saying use the words as symbols, but to point you to an experience of this non-dual truth. That's where he's leading you. So just seeing that, accepting it, ends the dream. There's no more need for symbols. You're just the pure formless awareness of perfect love and nothing else. So you don't need a symbol. You don't need Jesus. You don't need any master. You just need the essence of what you are, which is this divine love, and you experience it directly. You don't need to see it in another channel. It's coming directly in your own experience. And that's where he's leading us. He's saying, well, this, my experience of this is also your experience. You can experience this too, if you train your mind to do that. The moment your mind is undisciplined and you need mind training, but you can train it to experience this more and more. Okay, so any thoughts on that? And what I'll also mention is that this is very like the Course in Miracles. is akin to the Vedanta. So that what underpins Eastern spirituality is these Vedas. You might have heard of them, which were these works written by the sages of ancient India, which became the Vedic knowledge that underpins Hinduism and Buddhism, and that then spread from India to China and Japan and the rest of the East. So it underpins really all of the Eastern teachings. This Vedic knowledge that really is non-dual. Advaita Vedanta means the knowledge of not two, and it's a non-dual path. It doesn't make form real. So this is the Bill Thetford said this is the Christian form of the Vedanta, Course in Miracles. It's a pure non-dual teaching. It does not compromise in any way and make form real. This is why people struggle with it, because a lot of people don't want that uncompromising aspect. They want to hedge their bets and say, well, I kind of like form, so I'll keep the stuff I like in form, and I'll kind of acknowledge that there's also this other realm. And then they call it the alternative school of non-duality. And it's like, well, clearly it's not the alternative school of non-duality, because it's duality. Then you have two things which are real in your mind. So it's a misnomer to call it the alternative school of non-duality. No, it's duality. So you have to be very clear, it's duality or non-duality, but you can't mix them. There's no alternative school of non-duality by definition. I had an interesting conversation with a guy. We had this, it's actually a business meeting, and it sort of led into spiritual stuff. And he studied Advaita and he studied A Course in Miracles. And he then got into Tantra, which is very much about experience in the world and connecting with true awareness to experience. And he's saying, well, this high non-dual stuff didn't work for me, and I now prefer experience. And he was talking about, the experience of, say, touching a woman's back as an example, because Tantra is often, accepted, associated with sex, although it can actually be applied to any experience. And I just said to him, but that's not true. Ultimately, these experiences are illusion. So if you get attached to them, you go, oh, I really value that experience. Then you're actually denying the truth. And so then he said, well, I'm of the alternative school of non-duality. And so I was like, well, that's just nonsense. You can't have an alternative school of non-duality. There's only non-duality. So it's the same. And non-dual teaching means there's only one awareness, singular awareness, not two, only one. So anything else then is duality.
So this trap can be easily avoided if you realize that you are the same self. The spiritual masters like Yeshua and the Hindu demigods identified with and demonstrated the effects of through their inspired lives. They were all showing you the way to live in and through this true self, and never wanted to be put on a pedestal or worshipped as gods in their own right. For if they did, then they would still have been identifying with their ego and would not have been the enlightened masters they were. Yeah, I always think it's difficult for people like Eckhart Tolle or any of those type of people. Like, it's a tricky one, isn't it? They don't want to be put up there on stage and be seen as some sort of aspirational being. An interesting game, isn't it? I remember Ram Dass talking about it. Very interesting.
We, in Alan Watts's terminology, we pedestalize them. Sure, that's actually a word, but he made it up. Pedestalize, we put them on a pedestal. And we go, oh, they were the masters, they were so high, and we create all kinds of stories about how enlightened they were, and how they did all this miraculous stuff. And that's what happened with all of them. Jesus, the Buddha, and it all becomes very otherworldly and very out of reach for the average person, which is exactly what most religions want. Because then, you see, you need an intermediary. You still need the religion, the priests, the rabbis, the imams to now interpret the message, because you can't attain that state directly. That's what they say. So they said, well, you are that. You are exactly the same as Yeshua or the Buddha. That's a very important message. Why do you need a priest then to tell you the truth? Why can't you just experience it for yourself, as they did? So it's designed to keep that egoic construct that most religions have devolved into going. But the true masters, I mean, Yeshua was never asking people to worship him. Neither did the Buddha. I mean, it would have been totally alien concepts. He's gone, no, don't do that. Just find what I have in you. I am the same self as you, and experience it for yourself. Okay, so I'll read the next one. Every genuine spiritual master who's ever lived has had the same message. Let go of your belief in being a separate self, condemned to live a helpless, innovative little life, which you may notice HELL is an acronym for, so helpless, innovative little life. Surrender fully to the loving awareness that you are, which is your true self, also known as the Christ Buddha or Atman, the Christian, Buddhist, and Hindu traditions. So it's a universal message. They've all said the same thing. Across all these religions, traditions, across thousands of years, all the authentic, genuine spiritual masters, and there have been many fakes and imposters, but the genuine ones like Yeshua and the Buddha and Lao Tzu, and it's the same message. They're saying exactly the same thing. So only their followers who don't quite understand, but then sort of twist and distort the message into forms that seem to be different, seem to maybe contradict each other. But actually the original teaching was the same. Okay? Happy with that?
Yeah.
Do you read the next one in this context?
In this context, I think you'll find this diagram that explains the Holy Trinity, which is really an operating system for your life that will help you fully experience the pure, formless awareness of perfect love that is God by identifying with the one self or Christ and perceiving everything from the perspective of this one self, which is the Holy Spirit's perception or Christ's vision in A Course in Miracles terminology.
Yeah, so we've had a look at this again, but it's worth maybe looking at it again. This is the operating system. This is how it all fits together. So you've got the top, God, the Father, heaven, love, oneness, eternity, pure formless awareness, perfect love, source, knowledge, the ground of being. This, you could go on and fill probably a whole page with terms that have been used, but that'll do. We get the idea. It's the transcendent reality. It completely transcends this so-called reality of time and space. So that's the source, and then there's a communication link between the Father or the source and the Son or its extension. So in our minds, we remember this perfect love, and that communication link is the Holy Spirit. It connects us with the source. So now we have a true self, or Christ, or Buddha, or Atman, if you want to use those terms. And that true self feels connected. It's drawing its beingness from oneness. So it is one self. It's still a concept. There's still a sense of, okay, this is a self-concept, but it's the highest self-concept possible, because it's a concept that there's only one self and not multiple selves. Therefore, there's no separation. So that self, identifying with this self, then allows you to perceive the world correctly. So you now have true perceptions, which are also called Christ's vision in the Course, which are also called miracles. So you see clearly, and your miracles are corrections of your perception. And then there's a whole awareness through this process of forgiveness, through letting go of false beliefs that affect your perceptions. You experience correction, a miracle. So there's this letting go or surrender that's involved in true perception. And now you perceive all the people and things and places and events, circumstances, situations, trauma, successes, failures, and all experiences. Anything you experience in this world is perceived from a self. And there's only two selves that you can choose. The one is the ego, which means that you believe you're a separate self, disconnected from your source and trying to figure all this out, trying to seek pleasure and avoid pain, which doesn't work. Or you are one self, you're the Christ, the one self, the Buddha, the Atman, who sees that you are only one self and that your only purpose is to remember this self. And that all these experiences are actually designed by the ego to obscure that. And so your job becomes reinterpreted. Your job becomes to let them go. And so that's how it all fits together. God the Father, source, that leads to identifying with this true self, which is a self-concept that you can hold. So it's still not the perfect truth, but it's a good bridge. As we see, it's between the worlds. So Yeshua, instead of saying no self, in Buddhism, Buddha taught anatta, the doctrine of no self. There is no self. So that's kind of directly pointing to the abyss, to the void, which is quite scary for people. Of course, Course in Miracles says no, but there's a true self that does exist. It's the only thing that does truly exist, and that has some positive quality. And we call that the Christ, the Buddha, the Atman, or the true self. And then from that self, we perceive correctly. So that self is now perceiving all the people, things, places, failures, and every experience we have from the perspective of oneness, saying, well, in oneness, is this true? And none of it's true. So it recognizes that none of it's true. The only thing that is true always is this pure form of awareness, perfect love. So does that explain it? So to what the Holy Trinity is and how it works is really quite a practical operating system for your life. That's what I like about it. It's not some mystical concept. A lot of Christian priests and teachers, well, they don't really understand it. So they say the Holy Spirit's a mystery and they can't really explain it. But actually it's an operating system that's quite simple once you understand what it is and what it's designed to do. It's designed to help you to live your life more effectively as a useful tool, an operating system, not some mystical theoretical idea that you have no idea about. It really doesn't benefit you at all. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, source, its extension, and the awakened perceptions that the true self has of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's very helpful.
Oh, good. Okay, and that leads us into where we are currently, which is in the session. So shall we have a look at today's lesson and that insert on what is salvation?
I'm only here for half an hour more. I'm here until 2:15.
Right, okay. Okay, so what we'll do then is just skip. We'll skip the precursor and we'll go straight into the lesson, and then do a meditation, shall we?
Yeah, lovely.
Short lesson and then a 15-20 minute meditation. Okay, so
Perfect love is its beneficence. Perfect love in its beneficence is aware that I am free.
the original is
God in his mercy wills that I be saved.
it's a very different kind of flavor, isn't it? The alternative.
Yeah.
In its beneficence, perfect love in its beneficence.
I
So this is mercy.
had to Google what beneficence was. No,
Right.
I forgot what it is now. What is it?
Well, bene, it just means bene is like a blessing. It means good. Bene is the Latin for good. So it's something that's good, a beneficent presence. It's like it's trying to help you. It's trying to be helpful and guide you and bring blessings.
Yeah.
Mercy is very sort of traditional Christian, used for the same thing to denote this idea of an unconditionally loving presence. Gives you mercy, but it's the idea that you're kind of desperate. Do you see what's implied? God in his mercy wills that I be saved. So I'm some kind of desperate person needing to be saved from something, a sinner needing to be saved, rather than perfect love and its beneficence is aware that I am free now. Because that's the truth. It only knows, perfect love only knows freedom. It doesn't know anything else. So it's aware I'm free now. And if I merge my awareness, I accept that awareness for myself, then I am free. So I don't need God in his mercy wills that I be saved. It's not like some external force coming to save you. It's your own awareness arising that you already are that, which is exactly, what you described at the start of the session. I am free. I am free. Okay, so you sit there and just those words that are profound, I am free.
Yeah, because if you even say I'm aware I'm free, it still feels like an extra step away from it. And when I say I am free,
it's very direct.
Yam is right inside of me.
Those, simple, very simple pointers. I am free. I am love. These very, very simple pointers can be very effective in bringing the direct experience of what they point to into your mind. It's probably why a lot of therapists, healers don't use them, because they're scared. It's too direct. They might not have any clients anymore. If they said, well, you're free already, why do I need clients then?
Yeah.
Already, you see what I mean? It's like a contradiction almost. So this is the dynamic we work with in healing. You're probably familiar with Marisa Peer's work. So she would be like, well, I don't know why other psychologists and therapists don't do what I do, but she just gives her clients affirmations to say, I am enough. Same thing, I am free, I am enough, over and over. And so then they start believing it, and they start changing their fundamental belief system, and that changes their thoughts and their emotions and their perceptions. So she was using this diagram, really, going all the way down into the core. Okay, so what's the core? It's your core desire. I am free. I am enough. That's my core desire. And so now the beliefs about myself and thoughts and emotions and perceptions all change. I don't know why anyone else doesn't do this. Just go to the core, which is the self-concept, and get them to change that. And then everything changes. But it's not a common approach in psychotherapy, apparently. which
Louise
is
Hay, Louise
great.
Hay used to do that, didn't she? If you ever listen to
Mm,
her work, Louise Hay
mm,
would say the positive affirmations. But I think what was noted at the time was that people had so much resistance, they couldn't accept it. You
mm.
know, it'd be just like, oh, that's what I'm meant to say. Oh, I'm a failure because I can't say it and I can't believe it. So that kind of worked against some people.
Mm.
But maybe Marissa has a way of doing it that's a little bit more reachable, or people are more desperate when they go to her.
Well, I think it sounded like very direct. I'm just going on. I've never consulted her or gone into a method. I think she has a whole training course, and it's very direct. It's just I am enough. That was the affirmation she gave to her clients. So say that over and over again. Say it 10 times in the morning, 10 times at lunchtime, 10 times in the evening, and more during the day. And if you keep saying that, the mind starts to believe it. You start to feel it. So very, very simple, which is exactly the kind of process we use in the course, the Art of Letting Go course. We get to that next year, you'll see. It's a very simple, direct, get to the core. What's your identity? State it in one word. I am what? So there's no room for, ego maneuver. It's like, very clear, very direct pointer that brings that experience directly into your mind. Then you use that. That becomes your essence statement that you use every day, which then I incorporated into the daily lesson down here, into the daily email. I mean, say the essence statement and core values. So having been through that process every day, you say, I am the essence, and you remind yourself and you connect with the feeling of it in a few seconds, a minute. It doesn't have to take a long time. It's not, you have to contemplate that for hours. You just use that statement to connect with the state. So it becomes an anchor. If you use neurolinguistic programming terminology, it anchors you into a state of mind, a higher or deeper, more empowered state of mind. And you can do that in the morning, and you do that frequently during the day as well. So it's a really powerful tool to use. Okay, so any further thoughts on the key idea?
No, I'm free.
Yeah, so read the original and then read the translation.
I need but look upon all things that seem to hurt me with perfect certainty, assure myself God wills that I will be saved from this, and merely watch them disappear. I need but keep in mind my Father's will for me is only happiness, to find that only happiness has come to me. And I need but remember that God's love surrounds his Son and keeps his sinlessness forever perfect, to be sure that I am saved and safe forever in his arms. I am the son he loves, and I am saved because God in his mercy wills it so. Not only God, we will it.
Okay, so then the translation.
I need only perceive all things that seem to hurt me with perfect certainty, assure myself, pure formless awareness of perfect love is aware that I am free from this, and merely watch them disappear. I need only keep in mind my source's awareness for me is only happiness, to find that only happiness has come to me. And I need only remember that pure formless awareness of perfect love surrounds its extension and keeps its innocence forever perfect, to be sure that I am saved and safe forever in its arms. I am the extension it loves. And I am free because pure formless awareness of perfect love in its beneficence is aware that it is so.
Yeah, so let's just change the safe and
I find it a bit difficult when it's like saying in its arms, because it is so coming back to the human form.
safe and free forever in its
Embrace.
embrace is nice. Yeah, I like that. And its embrace. And it's still sort of got some embrace, hug type idea, but
More energetic than physical.
yeah, in its loving embrace, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels good. Got goosebumps.
Okay, good. We'll keep that. So you want to read number 3 again?
And I need only remember that pure formless awareness, perfect love, surrounds its extension and keeps its innocence forever perfect. To be sure, I am safe and free forever in its loving embrace.
No.
Yeah, that safe one. I always ponder that one. Maybe it's my thing that I've come in to explore, but safe feels like when we're in the energy of pure formless, there's no safety required, is there? There's like, it is safety for me is kind of linked with a bit of fear. It's the illusion, it's the duality. I don't know, there's something about it when I say safe in this, safe and free me don't go together. Free, yes, I get that, it's the pure formless awareness, but safety.
Peaceful, maybe?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I am peaceful and free forever.
Peaceful and free forever. So, safety implies a state of peace.
Okay.
You remember me speaking to a mind that is fearing. So saying, well, your fear is now over and you can feel safe. But the word implies that there was something to be safe from.
Exactly,
something to be safe from, which implies duality, which is the problem with a lot of words. Safe implies unsafe.
Yeah.
Dangerous. Because we're working then with duality.
Yeah.
Peaceful can imply, not peaceful. That's true. What I quite like about things like peace and freedom and love and joy is they're really states of mind, aren't they? Like a state of mind or a state of being actually has no opposite.
Yeah.
In truth, it's just this peaceful state, and if you're really in that state, then there is nothing else. It's just in this peace.
When I used to do the work, when I used to do the Course in Miracles work with Sandy Levy-London, I know you've heard of her from Iona. She had a list that we use, the truth about us, and it would say, can I read it to you? I just feel like I want to read it.
Yeah, sure.
It says, I am higher knowledge, I am knowing, I am source, I am now, I am trust, I am responsible, I am compassion, I am peace, I am safe, I am unlimited, I am abundant, I am whole, I am complete, I am free, I'm eternal, I am joy, I am light, I am beauty, I am innocent, I am love, I am one with you. So those in the Course in Miracles workshops we used to do together, it'd be letting go of the ego thoughts and then returning to the truth about us. And I like that. That was the first time I ever came across those statements that made sense to me. That is who we are ultimately.
Yeah, they just stated, they're all pointers to the same truth. In the end, I am that I am.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah.
When I did a transformational workshop, and they wanted your essence statement, and so I stood up and I wrote it to write it down. I said, I am. I just wrote I am, and the guy didn't accept it. He was like, no, it's incomplete. But actually, it's the very core, because it's I just am at the very end. It's the I am that I am presence, which was the name of God that Moses got in his mystical experience, which then incorporates all of it. You know, I am love, I am peace. So, okay, he's still now in some kind of, you have to use different words.
But it is a bridge, isn't it? It's a bridge from ego.
Very useful tool.
You say the words, and then yes, ultimately, I am that I am.
I am. Now in meditation, I just connect with the presence, and it's like a word. I go, I am love, or just I am, but it's a feeling. It's more than a word. It's just okay. That feeling's there, and that's what it is. It's the direct experience. So in the end, the word is not needed anymore. You don't need the words if you have the direct experience. And that's where this is leading us. The words can be helpful to facilitate that direct experience, which is why we use them temporarily. But as he says, just to remind us, this is a phase we're in. Words are symbols twice removed from reality, and words will mean little now. We use them only as guides on which we do not now depend. So you're not depending on the words. So then you get I need to say 5 Hail Marys, or I need to say, I am this 10 times. Or, you get over all that because it's like, well, they're just pointing you to a direct experience of truth alone. If you have direct experience of the truth, then words are not necessary. So that's what he's asking us to open ourselves to. So they are merely introductions to the times in which we leave the world of pain and go to enter peace. Now we begin to reach the goal this course has set, find the end towards which our practicing was always geared. So he's telling us very clearly here. That's why I include this up front. It's useful to remind yourself, okay, this is what we're doing here. Experiential, direct experience, mystic experience of the truth is what he's leading us to through these lessons as the starting point. That's why the lessons are brief. It's not meant to be some intellectual discourse. On things. It's just experience yourself. Okay, so that's all useful. So happy with number 1?
Yes, thank you. Number 2, Father, your holiness is mine. Your love created me and made my sinlessness forever part of you. I have no guilt nor sin in me, for there is none in you. Alternatively, my source is your pure formless awareness is mine. My source, your pure formless awareness is mine.
Yeah, so your holiness. And you're claiming that awareness for yourself.
Yeah. Your love extended me and made my innocence forever part of you. I have no guilt or sin in me, for there is none in you.
Make the present tense. Your love extends me. And makes my innocence forever part of you. I have no guilt or sin in me, for there is none in you. So it becomes very present. It extends me now. My innocence is here. I have no guilt or sin. Change sinlessness to innocence. So again, what we're trying to do is collapse duality. Don't use terms that imply the opposite. Sinlessness implies sin, doesn't it? So use innocence. This is a direct pointer to a state of mind that has no opposite.
Yeah, it's tricky though, isn't it? It depends which angle you're looking at it, because I have no guilt or sin in me, for there is none in you, is duality in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, remember, he's meeting us in our separate state. So the course is designed for people who think they're separate, not for people who've already attained a state where they realize they one with their source. Because there would be no need for a course then.
Yeah.
He's meeting us where we are in a state of separation with ideas of guilt and sin and fear and all this going on. And then these words assure us that none of that is true. And progressively and systematically, we start letting go of these beliefs. Saying, okay, well, if he's saying it over and over and over again, the more I read it, the more it makes sense to me, the more I can actually accept those. Now, I'm not guilty or sinful. None of this ever really happened. And then we start accepting that, the core message. Of course, duality is not real. None of it really happened. Only love is true and only love is real.
Yeah.
So again, your love extends me. Nice message. Very similar. These you notice it's the same theme. There's nothing really new. It's just changing the words, and it's all about pointing us within to an experience. Okay, connect with your source using these words as a starting point, and he uses different words every day, so our minds don't get bored. So that we can then enter into the connection with the presence. And it's the same, always the same presence being pointed to, just using the lessons as a starting point. Okay, so any questions or comments on the lesson? Any experiences about it you want to share?
No, I've just got the statement going through my head, there is no guilt or sin. That just keeps, yeah.
Through your mind, not your head.
Sorry.
It's just language, I know, but it's important to be as accurate, as mindful as possible, really, isn't it? The terms you
I say it totally mindfulessly, don't I? I don't even hear myself say it.
no,
Yeah.
because then you're going, oh well, I'm still a body. If I have a head, then I still have a body. Whereas if I'm a mind, then it's not in my head at all. It's actually, my mind is not in my brain. And that's basically when you say it's in my head, then you're saying my mind is in my brain, which is not true.
Yeah.
But these are the subtle, egos got us jacked into the matrix. And well, most people go, well, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, your mind's in your brain. Really? This is actually, you look at final frontier of science. The scientists are now grappling with this idea of consciousness. They can't explain it. It's the one last great frontier of science, because they've explained everything else. They've got these models of the universe, and now they've gone down to matter and quantum physics, but the one thing they can't really get is consciousness. What actually makes us conscious? And they, in typical styles, listening to the science, no, we want a consciousness detector. We want to measure it. So if we had a consciousness detector, we could say, well, that has consciousness, and this doesn't, like AI. Oh, that's conscious. And you see what I mean? They're trying to apply methods from the one domain of the flatland world of measurement to a world that doesn't fit that paradigm at all. I just laughed. Well, good luck with that. A consciousness detector. You're never really going to succeed, because you're trying to measure what is immeasurable. This is why they can't explain it, because their model of a kind of a flatland world is not true. If we look at this very briefly. Oh, you've got to go, haven't you? So shall we do a meditation?
Yeah, that'd be lovely.
I won't dive into that. Let's just do. Have you got time for 10 minutes or only 7?
Yeah.
Can do 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let's make yourself comfortable. So just sitting comfortably. Favorite meditation posture, feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, close your eyes. And as usual, start off with a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, and noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Start also there in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Feel the energy rising up your spine, clenching the sphincter muscle to facilitate that. Feel it rising up into your heart center. Put one hand in your heart, connecting with your heart space, and then draw it all the way up into the crown of your head. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. And just scanning your mind, noticing any thoughts, any emotions, any physical sensations related to these going on. Breathe in again into all of this. You're creating some space, some awareness. If you visualize, you can visualize a light, golden or white light coming in. And it's just starting to dissipate any of that dark energy, any contracted, restricted, limiting energy. You breathe into it, you feel this spacious awareness shining it all away. And then you're just going to let it all go with the help of your breath. So exhale out through your mouth. Imagine you blowing it all away. A dark cloud leaving you. It's going, gone to the nothingness that it really is. Pull the stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. Pause. Still. Just connect with the stillness. Deep peace and silence. Nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about for the next couple of minutes. Just breathe. Nice, deep, slow, rhythmical breaths in and out through your nose. Observe the breath flowing into the nostrils and out of the nostrils. And the breath take you to this very deep, calm, surrendered state. In which you realize that perfect love in its beneficence is aware that I'm free. It's perfect loving presence. It's absolutely aware that I'm free, and so that awareness is available. It hasn't been lost. I just have to accept it into my own mind. So do that now, just surrender in deeper and deeper with each passing breath to the stillness, the quietness, the freedom that lies within you. You experience the benefits of this deep presence. Feel the peace arising, deep love, feeling of safety, security, comfort. I need only perceive all things that seem to hurt me, and with perfect certainty assure myself. Your formless awareness of perfect love is aware that I am free from this. Merely watch them disappear. You only keep in mind the source's awareness for me is only happiness. To find that only happiness has come to me. I need only remember pure formless awareness of perfect love surrounds its extension, keeps its innocence perfect forever, to be sure that I am peaceful and free forever in its loving embrace. I am the extension it loves. I am free because pure formless awareness of perfect love in its beneficence is aware that it is so. So just sink into this awareness with this prayer. Say, Father or Source, your holiness, your pure formless awareness is mine. Love extends me and makes my innocence forever part of you. I have no guilt or sin in me, for there is none in you. And then rest in this still, innocent, formless awareness of perfect love. Nothing else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, observe the breath, relax, be still, and sink inwards to the pure formless awareness, perfect love, the innocence, purity that lies within you for the next couple of minutes in deep silence. If any thoughts arise, seem to disturb your peace, you observe them casually. From your higher awareness, you realize they're not you, just little clouds blowing around, scudding around in the low reaches of your mind. You can dismiss them. So breathe in this true awareness, the blue sky of your true awareness, the light of your source. Breathe it in and then just exhale it all out and release it. Float away like a dark smoke and merge your awareness back into the blue sky, which is your true, pure, innocent, formless awareness. The light of your source, perfect love that shines through it. For another minute or so of deep silence, just experience that fully, deeply and completely. So just come back gently into an awareness, the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. So you breathe in, so scan your mind. Again, notice any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations blowing around there. If there's anything that's not perfect peace and freedom, just observe it and let it go. On the count of 2, exhale. Blow it away with the breeze of your breath. Notice the air flowing out of your mouth, the chest and the stomach suck back in. Notice the energy raises up into the crown, just subsiding back down to the lower stomach and the groin. And the weight of your body on the count of 2, just pressing down into the chair. Is what you're touching and feeling. Maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, a smell in your nose as you inhale again. And notice what you're hearing. Noticing all these things from this very still, calm, surrendered state of mind. Very peaceful, very aware. No judgment, no labeling, no interpretation. And notice that this peace, even as you come back into the sense perceptions, awareness of sense perceptions is there. Still, just as it was when you were silent and quiet and not aware of your senses. So you start to recognize experientially that this peace is always there, this foundational awareness, the pure formless awareness we talk about of perfect love is always there. So on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around. Notice those objects in the room around you. Rest your eyes for a few seconds on any object randomly. Be aware of the underlying state of mind that you're in as you do that. If you're not naming it, judging it, labeling it, interpreting it, it's very peaceful. And then you move on, look at something else for a few seconds and notice the same awareness is there. Identical awareness. So you're teaching your mind that there's really only one awareness. It's unaffected by your sense perceptions, the body's eyes see what you hear, touch, taste, and feel. And this awareness is your foundation. That actually transcends sense perceptions entirely and is the truth of who you are eternally. If you can stay in that state, and that state is called samadhi, the sameness of perception. So to help you do that, practice today's lesson frequently today, ideally every hour. Yeshe recommends. To help you do that, I've sent you a 3-minute breath break recording you can listen to, or you can follow the instructions in my email or text message. It'll help you do it in under a minute, or if you feel that's too long, just a few seconds, reminding yourself that perfect love and its beneficence is aware that I am free. And you bring that sentence to mind, you take a deep breath and you connect with the energy. That needs only take you a few seconds just to top you up. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and today's session. So thank you, Sally, for joining, and I will see you tomorrow, I hope.
Yeah. Okay. See ya. Bye. Thank you.
A lovely afternoon.